After my husband died, I found his old phone hidden in his nightstand. For Eleanor Only, do not open until I'm gone. I was folding his shirts. That's what I was doing when I found the phone. Just folding his shirts like I had done for 43 years. The laundry was warm out of the dryer. I remember pressing one of his flannels against my face just to smell him one more time. He had been gone for 9 days. The funeral was over. The casseroles were still coming, but slowing down. My daughter had stopped staying the night. My son had gone back to Chicago. And I was alone in the house with 4,000 square feet of silence and a pile of laundry that smelled like the man I thought I knew. His nightstand was a mess. That was normal. Richard always kept his side of the bedroom like a disaster zone. Receipts from 2019, old batteries, reading glasses with one arm missing, a stack of cardiology reports he never showed me. I was cleaning it out because my daughter Sarah said I needed to keep busy. Keep busy. That's what people say when they want you to stop falling apart in front of them. I found the phone under a pile of Medicare pamphlets. It was an old iPhone. The screen was cracked in the top corner. I didn't recognize it. Richard had an iPhone, the same one he used for work for years, but this was different, smaller, older. When I picked it up, the screen lit up and I saw the message, 1% battery, and a notification that said 9 unread texts. I should have put it down. I should have thrown it in the trash and walked away and never thought about it again. But when you have been married to a man for 43 years and raised his children and managed his diabetes and held his hand while he took his last breath, you think you have earned the right to know everything. You think there are no more secrets. You think death is the end of lying. I was wrong. The phone died before I could open it. I sat there on the edge of the bed, holding a dead phone, and I felt something cold move through my chest. Not grief. Not the grief I had been carrying for 9 days. This was different. This was the feeling of a door closing, somewhere I didn't know existed. I found the charger in his desk. Of course he had a charger. He had planned for this. He had hidden a phone and kept a charger for it, and made sure it was tucked away where I would eventually find it. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe he just forgot. That's what I told myself. He forgot. He was sick. His heart was failing. He wasn't hiding things. He was just messy, disorganized. The man who couldn't remember where he put his car keys, but could remember every single stock ticker he ever bought. I plugged it in. The screen came back to life. The battery icon turned green. And then I saw the lock screen. A photo I had never seen. A woman. Not me. A woman with dark hair and a smile that was too wide. She was sitting on a boat. Somewhere with bright sun and blue water. Florida, maybe. The Caribbean. Somewhere we never went because Richard said he hated the heat. The phone buzzed. A text message came through. You there? I stared at it. My hands started shaking. The phone was still plugged into the wall. I was still sitting on the edge of the bed wearing the same black dress I had worn to the funeral. The same black dress I had been wearing for 3 days because I couldn't bring myself to change. Because changing felt like admitting he was really gone. I swiped the screen. It asked for a passcode. I didn't know it. Of course I didn't know it. I tried his birthday. Wrong. I tried our anniversary. Wrong. I tried the year we bought the house. Wrong. I tried my birthday. Nothing. I tried the kids' birthdays. Nothing. Then I tried his mother's birthday. He always used that for everything. His ATM code, his work login. His mother was his whole world until she died in 2005. I typed the numbers and the phone opened. The texts were all from someone named Eleanor. Not a contact, just the name. Eleanor. I scrolled up. The messages went back years, 5 years, maybe more. I couldn't tell where it started because the phone only saved so much. But what I saw was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything and nothing, and the kind of truth that makes you wish you had never been born. The first message I read was from 3 months before he died. Eleanor, I miss you. Come see me before the surgery. Richard, I will. Just give me time. Eleanor, you always say that.
I know. I'm sorry. You're dying, Richard. When are you going to stop being sorry and start being honest? I stopped reading. I put the phone down on the bed. I walked out of the bedroom and down the hall to the kitchen. I opened the refrigerator and stared inside. There was nothing I wanted. There was nothing I would ever want again. I closed the door and stood in the dark kitchen and listened to the house settle. The creaks and groans of a house that had held our family for 30 years. The house where we raised Sarah and Michael. The house where we had Christmas mornings and birthday parties and fights about money and quiet nights watching the news. The house where he died in the master bedroom with me holding his hand. I went back to the phone. I read everything. Her name was Eleanor Cross. She lived in Sarasota, Florida. She was 58 years old. She had been a travel nurse. She met Richard at a cardiology conference in Orlando 8 years ago. He was there for his heart. She was there for work. They started talking. They kept talking. They met again 6 months later in Tampa. Then again in Naples. Then again in Miami. He told her he was divorced. He told her his wife had left him years ago. He told her his children didn't speak to him. He told her he was lonely and sick and just wanted someone to hold him before he died. He told her a whole life that wasn't mine. I was never divorced. I never left him. Our children spoke to him every single Sunday. He was not lonely. He was surrounded by people who loved him, people who cooked for him and drove him to appointments and sat with him during chemo and held his hand when he was afraid. I did all of that. I did every single thing a wife could do. And he was telling some woman in Florida that I was gone, that I abandoned him, that he was alone. The worst part was the photos. He sent her pictures of the house, our house, but he cropped me out. Every single photo was carefully framed so I was not visible. The kitchen island where I made him soup, the backyard garden I planted with my own hands, the guest room we turned into his office, all of it. He erased me from every frame. She sent him pictures too, her on the boat, her on the beach, her in a red dress at some restaurant with white tablecloths, her holding a glass of wine and smiling at the camera like she was the happiest woman in the world, like she had found a good man, a dying man who loved her. And maybe he did love her. I don't know. That's the part that keeps me awake at night. Not the lies, not the money, not the betrayal. The question of whether he actually loved her more than he loved me. Whether those 8 years meant something to him that our 43 years never could. I called Sarah. She didn't answer. She never answers anymore. Not since the funeral. She said she needed space. She said watching him die was too hard. She said she couldn't be around the house because it made her too sad. I understood. Or I tried to understand. But now I was holding a phone full of secrets, and I needed my daughter. I called Michael. He answered on the second ring. He was at work. I could hear the Chicago traffic in the background. I told him I found something. He said, "What?" I told him about the phone. He went quiet. That long, terrible quiet that tells you more than words ever could. "Mom," he said, "I need to tell you something." I said, "What?" He said, "Dad told me about her. 3 years ago. He made me promise not to say anything. He said it would kill you. He said he was ending it. He said he just needed time to figure out how to tell you the truth." I said, "Did he end it?" Michael didn't answer. I said, "Michael, did he end it?" He said, "No. He never ended it. He saw her 6 months ago. In Florida. He told me he was going to a cardiology appointment, but he flew to Tampa instead. I have the credit card statement. I didn't know what to do. I hung up the phone. I walked back to the bedroom. I looked at the bed where he died. The sheets had been stripped and washed. The pillows were gone. The hospital bed we rented had been taken away. All that was left was the faint yellow stain on the carpet where his oxygen machine leaked. I sat down on the floor, right there on the carpet. I curled up like a child, and I cried until there was nothing left. The next morning I drove to Florida. I don't know why. I don't have a good reason. I just needed to see her. I needed to look into the face of the woman who held my husband while I was sitting in waiting rooms and signing consent forms and begging doctors to save his life. I needed to know if she knew about me, if she knew the truth, if she was a victim too, or if she was something worse.
I found her address in the phone. Of course, he saved it. Richard saved everything. He had a folder marked Eleanor, with her address, her birthday, her blood type, her favorite flowers. He kept her like a file, like a spreadsheet, like every other part of his life that he organized and controlled, while I floated around him like a ghost. The drive took 14 hours. I stopped twice for gas and once to sleep in a rest area. I was 67 years old, and I was sleeping in a rest area in Georgia because I couldn't afford a hotel. Not because I didn't have money, because Richard had drained our accounts. I didn't know that yet. I would learn that later. But on that drive, I just thought I was being careful, frugal, the way I had always been. I got to Sarasota at noon. Her house was small, a little blue bungalow with a white fence and a garden full of pink flowers. There was a swing on the porch, a cat sleeping on the steps. It looked like the kind of house where someone went to heal, where someone went to start over. I sat in my car across the street for an hour, just watching the front door. Then she came out. She was beautiful. That's the part that hurt the most.
She was beautiful in a way I had never been. Dark hair, tan skin, a body that looked like it had never carried children or cooked for a family or spent 30 years scrubbing tile floors. She was wearing white shorts and a blue shirt, and she was smiling at her phone, probably texting someone who wasn't dead. I got out of the car. My legs were shaking. My hands were shaking. I walked across the street and up the path to her front door. The cat ran away. The flowers smelled like something I couldn't name. I knocked. She opened the door. She looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was just an old woman at her door. And I was. That's what I was. An old woman in a black dress, with gray hair, and tears still wet on her cheeks. I said, "Are you Eleanor?" She said yes. I said, "My name is Margaret. Richard was my husband." Her face changed. Not to guilt, not to shame, to something else. Something I didn't expect. She stepped back. She put her hand over her mouth. And then she started crying. She said, "Oh my God. He told me you were dead." I didn't say anything. She said, "He told me you died 5 years ago. Cancer. He said he was a widower. He said he had been alone for years. He said you and he had a beautiful marriage, and he missed you every day, and he just wanted someone to love before his own heart gave out." I said, "He died 9 days ago." She said, "I know. He called me the night before. He told me he loved me. He said he was sorry he couldn't marry me." He said there was something he never told me, and then he hung up. I've been calling that phone every day since. Every single day. I thought he just got scared. I said he was never divorced. He was never a widower. I was his wife for 43 years. I changed his diapers at the end. I held his hand while he took his last breath. And he was on the phone with you the night before. She sat down on her porch swing. She was crying so hard she couldn't breathe. I stood there watching her, this woman who had been sleeping with my husband for 8 years, this woman who believed his lies the same way I did, this woman who was just as destroyed as I was. I sat down next to her. We didn't talk for a long time. We just sat there on that porch swing in the Florida heat, while the cat came back and curled up at her feet. 2 women who loved the same liar. 2 women who had been played by a man who was too cowardly to tell the truth to either of us. She said he gave me money. I said, "What?" She said, "Every month, for the last 3 years, he sent me money. He said it was from a trust. He said it was what he could give me before he died, because he wanted to make sure I was taken care of. I didn't ask for it. I told him not to, but he sent it anyway." I said, "How much?" She said, "About $8,000 a month." I did the math in my head. $8,000 a month for 3 years, nearly $300,000. Money that should have been ours. Money that should have gone to our children. Money that should have paid for his medical bills. Money that I was now going to have to figure out how to live without. I said, "Did you know about me?"
She said, "No, I swear to you, I did not know. He showed me photos of your grave. He said he visited you every year on your birthday. He said your name was on a headstone in Virginia." I believed him. Why wouldn't I believe him? He was dying. I believed him too. For 43 years, I believed him. And now here I was, sitting next to his mistress on a porch in Florida, trying to figure out which one of us had been hurt worse. I drove home that night. I didn't stay. I couldn't stay. She offered me a room. She offered me dinner. She offered to show me the letters he wrote her, the letters where he talked about how guilty he felt, how he wished he could go back and do things differently, how he wished he had met her first. I didn't want to read them. I didn't want to know any more than I already knew. The drive back was darker, harder. I stopped crying somewhere around Jacksonville. My body just ran out of tears. I drove the rest of the way in silence. No radio, no audiobook, just the hum of the tires on the highway and the sound of my own breath going in and out of a chest that felt like it was filled with cement. When I got home, I went straight to the bedroom. I opened his closet. All his clothes were still there. His suits, his shoes, his ties, the blue sweater I gave him for our 40th anniversary. I took everything down. Every single thing. I piled it in the middle of the bedroom floor. Then I went to the garage and got the gas can we kept for the lawnmower. I poured the gasoline over his clothes. I stood there with a box of matches in my hand, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't light the match. Not because I didn't want to, because the house was made of wood, and I was too old to go to jail, and my children would never forgive me. So I put the matches down. I put the gas can away, and I shoved all his clothes into trash bags and left them on the curb. Someone took them. That was the worst part. Someone actually took them. A stranger in a pickup truck stopped and loaded every single bag into the bed and drove away, and I watched him go. And I thought about how that stranger would never know. He would never know that he was driving away with the last physical pieces of a man who destroyed 2 women with the same set of lies. The money was worse than the cheating. I found out about the money 2 weeks later when I tried to pay the property taxes. The account was empty, not low, empty, $0. I called the bank. They said the funds had been transferred over the last 3 years to an account in Florida, an account belonging to Eleanor Cross. I told them it was fraud. They said it wasn't fraud because Richard had authorized every transfer. He had signed every form. He had done it all himself while I was sitting in hospital waiting rooms praying for him to live. I hired a lawyer. Her name was Diane. She was young, maybe 35. She had red hair and glasses, and she looked at me like I was a problem she didn't have time for. But she took the case. She said we could try to recover the money, but it would be hard because Richard was dead, and Eleanor hadn't done anything illegal. She didn't know he was married. She didn't know the money was joint property. She was as much a victim as I was. I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to hear that she was a victim. I wanted her to be a villain. I wanted someone to hate, someone I could point at and say, "You did this. You destroyed my life." But there was no one. Richard was dead. Eleanor was broken. And I was just an old woman in an empty house with no money and no husband, and 2 children who didn't know how to look at me anymore. Sarah finally came over. She sat on my couch, the same couch where she learned to crawl, the same couch where she cried over her first breakup, the same couch where she told me she was pregnant with my grandson. She sat there and she wouldn't look at me. She looked at her hands. She looked at the window. She looked anywhere but my face. She said, "Mom, I need to tell you something." I said, "I can't take any more." She said, "I knew about Eleanor." The room went cold. She said, "I found out 2 years ago. I was helping Dad with his emails. He left his laptop open. I saw the messages. I confronted him. He begged me not to tell you. He said it would kill you. He said he was ending it. He said he just needed time to say goodbye to her because she was sick. She had cancer. He couldn't just abandon her." I said she didn't have cancer. Sarah said, "What?" I said she was a travel nurse. She was healthy. He lied to you too. He lied to everyone. That's what he did. That's who he was. Sarah started crying. Not the quiet tears I was used to. Loud, ugly sobs that came from somewhere deep. She fell off the couch onto her knees on the floor. I went to her. I held her. My daughter. My 41-year-old daughter who had kept a secret for 2 years because her father asked her to. Because he manipulated her the same way he manipulated everyone. I said, "It's not your fault." She said, "I should have told you." I said, "Yes, you should have. But I don't have the energy to be angry at you two. I'm too tired. I'm too old. I just want to sit here and hold you like I did when you were little and nothing in the world was broken yet." We sat like that for an hour, maybe longer. I don't know. Time stopped meaning anything after Richard died. After I found the phone. After I drove to Florida. After I sat on a porch swing with a woman who loved my husband and believed she was doing nothing wrong. Michael came home the next weekend. He brought his wife Jenna and my grandson Leo. Leo is 6. He has blue eyes like his grandfather. He ran into the house and hugged me and asked where Pop-Up was. I told him Pop-Up went to heaven. He asked if he could come back. I said, "No, baby, he can't come back."
Michael stood in the kitchen with his hands in his pockets. He looked like his father. Same jaw, same shoulders, same way of avoiding eye contact when he knew he had done something wrong. He said, "Mom, I'm sorry I didn't tell you." I said, "You're 38 years old. You're a grown man. You made a choice." He said, "I was trying to protect you." I said, "Protect me from what? From the truth? From knowing that my husband was a liar? From knowing that my son kept secrets from me? From knowing that my whole marriage was a performance?" He didn't have an answer. There was no answer. There was just the two of us standing in a kitchen where I had made him breakfast every morning for 18 years, where I had packed his lunches and kissed his forehead and told him he could be anything he wanted to be. And now he was a man who watched his father betray his mother and said nothing. Jenna took Leo to the backyard. She knew. Of course she knew. Michael told her everything. He always told Jenna everything. But he couldn't tell me. He could tell his wife. He could tell his friends. He could tell anyone except the woman who gave him life. I sat down at the kitchen table. The same table where we ate dinner every night. The same table where Richard used to sit at the head and tell stories about his day. The same table where we celebrated anniversaries and birthdays and the day Michael graduated from law school. I put my hands in my hands and I thought about how a table is just wood. Just a piece of wood that people put food on, but it holds memories like a sponge holds water. And right now, the memories were drowning me. Michael sat down across from me. He said, "There's something else." I said, "Of course there is." He said, "Dad changed his will 6 months ago. He left Eleanor the house in Florida, the vacation house, the one in Naples, the one Grandma left you." I didn't know about any house in Florida. I didn't know about any vacation house. My mother never owned property in Florida. My mother never owned anything except a small apartment in Cleveland where she lived until she died. I looked at Michael and I saw that he believed what he was saying. He really thought there was a house. He really thought his father had a vacation home in Naples. He really thought his grandmother left it to me. I said, "Michael, there is no house." He said, "What?" I said, "Your grandmother died with $3,000 to our name. She never owned a house in Florida. She never even been to Florida. She was afraid of flying. She took a train to Chicago once and she thought that was an adventure." Michael's face changed. The color drained out of him. He looked like a boy again, like the little boy who fell off his bike and came running to me with bloody knees. He looked lost. He said, "Dad told me. He sat me down last year. He showed me documents, deeds, tax records. He said it was all in my name. He said he put it in my name so you wouldn't have to pay inheritance tax. He said I was supposed to sell it after he died and give the money to Eleanor. He said it was the least he could do for her." I said, "Did you see the deeds?" He said, "Yes, I saw them. They looked real." I said, "Did you check with a lawyer?" He said, "No,
I trusted him. He was my father. I stood up from the table. I walked to the bedroom. I opened Richard's closet, even though there was nothing left inside, just empty hangers and the smell of mothballs. I stood there in the middle of the empty closet, and I laughed. Not a happy laugh, the kind of laugh that comes out when your brain breaks, when you realize that the man you loved built an entire world of lies, so detailed, so elaborate, so complete, that even his own son believed in houses that didn't exist. Michael was behind me. He was crying now, big tears rolling down his face. He looked like a grown man having a heart attack. He said, "Mom, I'm so sorry." I said, "He never loved me, did he?" Michael said, "I don't know. I don't know anything anymore." I said, 43 years, 3 children, a house, a life, and he never loved me. He loved a woman he saw 8 times a year. He loved a fantasy. He loved someone he didn't have to wake up next to when she was sick or angry or tired. He loved the idea of her, and she loved the idea of him. And I was the only one who loved the real person, the man who left his socks on the floor, the man who snored so loud I slept in the guest room for 10 years. The man who forgot every anniversary, but remembered every lie. Michael hugged me. He was taller than me. He always had been. Since he was 14 years old, he towered over me. And now he was holding me like I was the child, and he was the parent. Like he was trying to put me back together, even though he was the one who helped break me. I pulled away. I said, "I need you to leave." He said, "Mom, please." I said, "I love you, but I need you to leave. I need to be alone. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not Richard's wife, when I'm not your mother, when I'm not the person who holds everything together. I don't know that person. I've never met her, and I need to meet her before I die." He left. Jenna came in from the backyard with Leo. She looked at me. She didn't say anything. She just nodded. She took Leo's hand, and they walked out the front door, and I watched them get in the car and drive away. My grandson waved at me through the back window. I waved back. And then I closed the door and locked it, and I didn't open it again for 3 days. I don't know what I did in those 3 days. I don't remember. I think I slept. I think I ate crackers from the pantry. I think I watched television with the sound off. I think I sat in the bathtub until the water went cold. Time just disappeared, like someone had cut those 3 days out of my life with scissors. On the 4th day, I called Eleanor. She answered on the first ring, like she was waiting. I said, "I'm not going to sue you for the money." She said, "I already sent it back." I said, "What?" She said, "Every penny. I transferred it back to your account yesterday. I never wanted it. I told him not to send it. I told him it was wrong. He said it was a gift. He said it was from his heart. But it wasn't his to give. I know that now. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand." I said, "You didn't have to do that." She said, "Yes, I did. I loved him. But I loved a lie. And I can't build a life on a lie. I can't take money that belongs to you. I can't sleep in a bed that was paid for with your tears. I'm sorry, Margaret. I am so sorry." I didn't say anything for a long time. I just held the phone and listened to her breathe. This woman who had been my enemy. This woman who had been my rival. This woman who was just another person Richard had used and thrown away. I said, "Thank you." She said, "What are you going to do now?" I said, "I don't know. I have a house. I have 2 children who love me, even though they lied to me. I have a grandson who still thinks the world is good. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that has to be enough." She said, "I'm moving to Oregon. I have a sister there. I need to start over." I said, "Me too." We hung up. I sat in the quiet of my bedroom. The sun was coming through the window. The same window where I used to watch Richard mow the lawn. The same window where I watched our children run through the sprinkler. The same window where I watched the world change and stay the same and change again. I got up. I walked to the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. Gray hair, wrinkles, eyes that had seen too much, a mouth that had said too many things she couldn't take back. I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me, but I wanted to. I turned on the shower. I got in. I washed my hair for the first time in 9 days. I used his shampoo, the one with the pine smell. It was almost empty. I held the bottle and I thought about throwing it away, but I didn't. I put it back on the shelf, right where it had always been. Some things you keep, even when they hurt, even when they remind you of everything you lost. Because throwing them away doesn't make the pain stop. It just makes the house emptier. And my house was already empty enough. I got dressed. I went to the kitchen. I made coffee. The first real coffee I had made since he died. I sat at the table and I drank it black, even though I always took cream. I didn't have any cream. I forgot to buy groceries. I forgot a lot of things these days. The phone rang. It was Sarah. She said, "Mom, I'm outside." I looked out the window. Her car was in the driveway. She was sitting in the driver's seat with her forehead pressed against the steering wheel. I went outside. I opened her car door. I took her hand. She was shaking. She said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have told you. I should have been braver.
I should have been your daughter instead of his secret keeper." I said, "You are my daughter. You will always be my daughter. And I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, because I can't carry this anymore. I can't carry the anger and the hurt and the betrayal. It's too heavy. I'm too old for heavy things." She got out of the car. She hugged me, right there in the driveway, in front of the neighbors who were probably watching from behind their curtains. She held me like she did when she was a little girl, like she was afraid I would disappear. I said, "Let's go inside. I'll make you breakfast." She said, "Mom, it's 4 p.m. I said, "Then I'll make you dinner." We walked inside together. I opened the refrigerator. There was almost nothing. Some eggs, some cheese, a jar of pickles from 2022. I looked at Sarah and she looked at me and we both started laughing. The kind of laugh that comes after a storm, when the sky is still gray, but the rain has stopped. I said, "We need to go grocery shopping." She said, "We need to do a lot of things." I said, "One thing at a time." We drove to the grocery store. The same one I had been going to for 30 years. The same one where Richard used to argue with me about which brand of peanut butter to buy. I walked through the aisles and I saw him everywhere. In the cereal section, in the dairy aisle, in the frozen foods. Ghosts everywhere. But I kept walking. I picked up bread, milk, eggs, butter. The things you need to survive. The things you need to keep going, even when you don't want to. Sarah put a box of cookies in the cart. The kind Leo likes, the kind with the chocolate chips. I said, "Is he coming over?" She said, "Tomorrow, if that's okay." I said, "That's more than okay." We checked out. We drove home. We put the groceries away. I stood in the kitchen and looked around. The same kitchen where I had cooked thousands of meals. The same kitchen where I had cried over burnt roasts and celebrated perfect pies. The same kitchen where Richard told me he loved me for the first time, 43 years ago, on a Tuesday, in the rain. I don't know if he meant it then. I don't know if he ever meant it. I don't know if I'll ever know. But I know this. I am still here. I am 67 years old. I have gray hair and bad knees and a heart that has been broken more times than I can count. But I am still here. I am still standing in my kitchen. I am still making breakfast for my daughter. I am still going to see my grandson tomorrow. And maybe that's not a happy ending. Maybe it's not an ending at all. Maybe it's just a Tuesday. Just another Tuesday in a long line of Tuesdays. Some good, some bad,
some that make you wish you had never been born. But you don't get to choose the Tuesdays. You just get to live through them. I put the milk in the refrigerator. I closed the door. I looked at my reflection in the stainless steel. An old woman. A tired woman. A woman who had been lied to and cheated on and abandoned by almost everyone she loved, but still standing, still here, still Margaret. And that would have to be enough.